it's Alicia and welcome back to my channel. If this is your first time tuning in, welcome in, welcome in, welcome in. Grab a seat, get a snack, get you a drink, baby, get comfortable. Welcome to the club, welcome to the family. I hope you like what you see and decide to stay around. So make sure you go ahead and click that subscribe button so we can be locked in. Okay, locked in. If you like book content, fashion content, lifestyle videos, and a little bit of some extra things here and there, come on in, join the family. I would love to have you. And yeah, as you can see by the title of today's video, we're going to be doing a reading wrap up. I was hesitant to do it because I was like, do y'all want to see what I read, even though it's like the new year? And I was like, why not? So yeah, we're gonna be doing that reading wrap up for November and December. Y'all can see it kind of by the pattern that I have right now. I tend to do reading wrap ups in multiple months. I'm gonna try to do better, but honestly, like, sometimes it varies. I might not read a lot one month and then I might read a whole bunch the next month, and it just makes sense for me to group them all together. But never know, because I got a bigger reading goal this year. So we're gonna see, child. We're gonna see. But yeah, I'm not gonna ramble too much because I like to do that. We're gonna jump straight into this video and get into the readings, the books that I read in November. Okay, so I read 3 books in November, and yeah, I started off November real smooth, real cute, and I said, yeah, let's see what it's talking about. Honestly, I don't know. I was kind of like between August and September, I was kind of in like a weird reading mood. I don't know what was going on, but like I was wanting to read, but like I wasn't in the mood for certain books. But in November, I had got this book that I came. I ordered it. It is Elevator Pitch by Evelyn Leigh. This book, oh my gosh, I tabbed it all up. Oh my gosh, can y'all see that? Tabs for days. This book I had pre-ordered. I found this author, I believe. I don't know if I found her on Instagram, or I think I heard somebody talk about her book on TikTok. One of the two. And I pre-ordered the book. And I started following her on Instagram. And so I pre-ordered it. And I was like, well, I can't wait. This sounds so good. Like, we're finna see. And it came in November. No, it came in October, I believe. And I read it in November, the first few days in November. Yeah. I could not put this book down. We was glued, besties, very much so locked in. So a quick synopsis. This book is about Celia Bailey. So she is our main character, our female main character, and she is like on her own kind of like journey of, she has like some kind of she has a little bit of PTSD. Sorry, my words slipping away from me. She has some kind of version of PTSD and anxiety and depression. And so she kind of struggles a little bit. But she's also just trying to like progress in life. She's about to reach her birthday. And she's like, I have all these things that I want to accomplish by my birthday. And she calls it her effort list. Fill in the blank, okay? So she calls it her effort list, and she's like, I want to do all these things. It's a wide range of things, okay? Also, check your trigger warnings. It has a list in the beginning of this book that talks about the triggers. So check the trigger warnings on this, because it does talk about, like I just said, PTSD, different kind of mental health issues, some various things. So check your triggers on this. But I really enjoyed this book. It was really good. So Celia, back to the list. So Celia has this list, and she enlists. She has this list, and she is on a journey to try to accomplish everything on this list by her birthday. And while she's in the midst of trying to get things done off the list, she ends up meeting her neighbor in the elevator. And she kind of like, they kind of get cool or whatever. And so she's like, can you help me with my list? And it's a story of them getting things out on this list. So Yeah, this is really cute. The male main character, his name is Grayson. Oh, he loved him. This is like, if you don't like spice scenes or whatever, you're not gonna like this book, just to be honest. But it has like markers in here. Not markers, but it has like a whole list of the chapters it's in. So if you want to skip it, skip it. But yeah, so if you like that or you into that, you will like this book. I really enjoyed this and I rated it 5 stars. And it's also a series, so I can't wait for the next book to come out. It's gonna come out this year, I think in the fall. So yeah, I can't wait to check it out. So that was Elevator Pitch by Evelyn Lay. The next book I read, it was right up there. The next book I read was Somebody's Wife by Robbie Renee. So I found out about this book on TikTok and Book Talk, and I was like, oh, it sounds messy. It sounds really good. Okay, so it's about a woman named, her name is Dr. Gemma Holiday, and she is somebody's wife. Okay, so she's somebody's wife, and basically she has a very interesting marriage, and because of that, it kind of like her marriage and her work life are very much connected because her and her husband are like college sweethearts. And like she was homecoming queen, and he's like a track star and an Olympian and everything. And they both work back at their alma mater, and they present themselves as a very united, strong front. You know, very much brave face in front of the people at the school, and because they work there, so they get present themselves as like this very happy couple. But it's a little, it ain't that happy at home. And yeah, so it kind of takes you on a journey of their marriage, and something happens to break them up. And then enter Dr. Ezekiel Green. Now, Dr. Ezekiel Green, I didn't want him in real life because 10 cents across the board, he said, yeah, you better tell him, I'm trying to show you how you're supposed to be treated. And I said, I know that's right. But yeah, he top 10 book boyfriend. He did not play. But also the same thing goes with this. If you are not into the spice, don't read this. Yeah, no, I wouldn't recommend you reading this. You're probably not gonna like it. And it's not marked in this book to where the scenes are. So yeah, but I rated this 5 stars. I really enjoyed this book. I enjoyed the story. It's also a sequel to this, but we'll get to that a little bit later. So that was Somebody's Wife by Robbie Renee. The next book I read in November was actually a nonfiction book, and it is Ride or Die by Shanita Hubbard. And I have picked this up because I've been kind of like reading nonfiction here and there just to kind of just take little bits and pieces of it, just kind of just to be informed and learn more, because you can learn a lot through the fiction that you're reading and things like that. But it's also some things I kind of want to get into that needs to be nonfiction. And I am a part of my college degree is sociology, and so I kind of I like reading about people and different perspectives. I don't know, it just scratches a little itch in my brain, and I'm just like, yeah, I needed that. And this was that, because I also love hip hop. So Ride or Die dives into, it literally says in the front, a female manifesto for the well-being of Black women. And the book is named Ride or Die. It's after a Nas song, and it kind of takes you down the timeline and a kind of like of a story of like how the trope or the idea of the ride or die that was presented through Nas and hip hop, and kind of not saying that he is the reason, but like his song sparked kind of like a domino effect with the whole be a ride or die woman, this and that. And so she kind of goes into the ideology of being a ride or die woman and dissecting it into how it has affected the way that Black women specifically operate and are perceived throughout the world. So I thought it was a very interesting read. I really did appreciate the way she broke things down. Some of the things she kind of like used examples from her own personal life, and I appreciate that because it kind of put a lot of things into context versus just reading it as it was and just like not having a prime example, not having a pure example of like real life that you can apply to. So I appreciate that she used her real life for context, and I didn't really understand what she was saying, and it made a lot of sense because I think as Black women we are supposed to be the strong person. We are supposed to, you know, carry the weight of everything and present ourselves as being strong and not like appear weak or whatever and just handle everything, you know, take care of everything, hold you down, this, and that. And I feel like it's a very, especially now, it's a very important conversation to have about protecting and caring for the well-being of Black women, because it's like we deserve breaks. We don't always have to be strong. We don't always have to be the ride or die. We have to save ourselves more than we saving other people. So that was why I really enjoyed this book. So ride or die. And I didn't rate this book. I didn't really have a rating for this book. I usually rate things based off of my readability. Not readability, but like if I want to read it again or not, how much I enjoyed it. And this one, I would read it again, but I feel like I got what I needed from it. But I don't want to be like, oh, it's not a good rate. It don't have a good rating because it's not like it was a bad book. It's just it did what it was supposed to do in the moment. It's a good reference for me to have. So I couldn't figure out how to rate that and make sense of the rating. So I didn't rate this book, but I did enjoy it. So if you are interested in having a conversation or reading a conversation about the ride or die of Black women and how it has its effects and trickle down effects in our community, in the Black community specifically, I would recommend this book. But that's all I gotta say. Ride or Die by Shanita Hubbard. And those were the 3 books that I read in November. Like I said, sometimes I read a whole lot, sometimes I don't read that much. So in November I read 3 books, and then in December I read 5. December was a little different though. December was a little different because a lot of downtime. A lot of relaxation, and yeah, so I read a nice amount of books. 5 books, which is a lot for me typically because I work full time. And yeah, but like I said, December was a little downtime month. I had some downtime available, so. The first book I read was Waiting to Exhale by Terry McMillan, and I experienced this when I first got this book because I think I included it into a haul. If I did, I would like link that video. But I wanted to read this book because I haven't seen the movie. Still, I haven't seen the movie. I haven't seen the movie in full. I've seen bits and pieces and clips. I know like iconic moments and things like that from it, but I didn't get the whole like entire gist of the movie, or I didn't really know the movie like that. And I was like, okay, well, I got the book, so let me read the book. And I read this book, and I'm gonna tell y'all right now, everybody in here got on my nerves. They made me not want to watch the movie. Oh my gosh, everybody up in here got on my nerves so bad. I said, I know you lying to me. And it took me so long. It kind of like, it took me a minute to get fully invested in the book. But once I did, I was just like deep ancestral Negro side. Like, I was just like, what is going on here? Because, and I know the book was written in the 90s, and it's like presented during the time, even though I can still see some of the things that they experience still occur to this day and still like are relevant, but it's also very weird. Not weird, very reflective. I don't know if that's the word I want to say. It's very interesting to read it now in the 2020s when it was written like over 30 years ago, or a little less, around 30 years ago. I'm not sure exactly when it came out, when it was written, but I know it was the 90s. But yeah, so it's like, it's interesting to read this and then look, but because the times were so different back then. But it's just like, I'm gonna be honest, like the fat phobia in this book was so unnecessary to me. I didn't like, I feel like they could have handled, she could have handled the conversation around AIDS and HIV in here a lot better. That kind of rubbed me the wrong way. If you don't know what Writing to Exhale is about, I'm gonna give you a quick synopsis. But it is about 4 women who are on different journeys of their life and are basically end up coming together as a friend group and leaning on each other while they're going through their own different life experiences. So yeah, that's how I would say it, to not like, I mean, to not spoil anything. I don't know if you can really spoil anything because you can go watch the movie and you'll know. But yeah, honestly, this book was just like, I don't know what I was expecting. I know it's a very much so beloved movie, and I'm just like, I kind of had ideas of what to expect based off the movie, but like, y'all, this book, the characters, everybody get on my nerves. I was just like, you lying to me. What is going on? I know, ain't no way this is what was happening. And so, and then because I know who plays who in the movie, I know who's in the movie, I'm picturing them as like I'm reading the characters that they play. So it's like, I know that Whitney Houston plays Savannah. I know that Angela Bassett played Bernadette. Like, I know that I know who played who, and so I'm seeing them as these people while I'm imagining like them in real life and reading the book and putting like faces to characters, and so I'm imagining them, and it's just like, wow, the casting. First of all, the casting fits because it's like that makes sense. But also, that was getting on my nerves. Everybody was getting on my nerves. But it was a cool book. I think I rated it 3 stars. Definitely don't have to read it again. Yeah, I rated it 3 stars. I don't have to read it again. Like I said, they got on my nerves so bad. I really don't want to watch the movie like that. I might watch it just for like fun. I don't know, but like it doesn't make me want to watch it because like the book wasn't all that to me. So I know the movie might make me just as mad. Because it's always a thing about, I'm going on a tangent, sorry. It's always a thing about when you look back at, when you go and rewatch the movies that like came out around the time that we were growing up, I was growing up specifically, like you go back and see how problematic things were. And it's just like, if I probably would have read this like a couple years ago, I probably wouldn't have been as annoyed as I was. I probably still would have been annoyed, but just not on the scale of annoyed as I was. It would have been more bearable. Because it's like going back and watching Love and Basketball. And when we grew up, it's like, oh, this is a beloved movie. Like, this is a love story. And it's like, girl, actually, please. This is a horror film. But, yeah, that's my little tangent on Waiting to Exhale. Like I said, it was cool, but I'm cool on this. Like, I don't have to read it. Again, don't necessarily need to watch the movie, but she did what she's supposed to do. The next book I read was Somebody's Forever. This is a sequel to Somebody's Wife. It is a novella, really short, less than 200 pages, really less than 150. I think it's like 130 or something like that. But yeah, this right here wrapped it up in a real good bow. I really wasn't ready for it to be over. I really wanted to know more. And honestly, I went in with kind of mid expectations because I was reading the reviews and people were in the reviews. I was kind of seeing like got an idea of what was gonna happen or what was to come, but I was very like, dang, I was kind of anticipating not liking the sequel as much as I liked the book, the initial book, and I don't know. I really liked the sequel. It was good to me. It was a little bit. It felt like I don't know. She could have made it a little bit longer. She could have made it a little bit longer so we can get some like get a little bit more detail and depth into what was going on. But like overall, it was a good sequel, and I feel like it very much so tied the story up in a nice little bow. Um, it if I say anything, I'm gonna spoil it. So yeah, just know it's the sequel and just know it's good. Period. It is good, and I think I rated this. I rated this 4 stars, so it wasn't a 5 star, but it was still good to me. Like I said, I wish it was like a little bit longer and we got a little bit more details. But I understand why she did it, how she did it. So yeah, I ain't gonna say too much. She did just release a new book called Somebody's Husband. It is not connected to these stories. I think it may be a cousin of the character of one of the characters, but I'm not sure. It's not just like it's not a story though. Like it's not a story. It's not connected though. It's just a whole separate. It's not like a part of this series. I think it was just these 2 books because she explicitly said on her Instagram like these are not connected. Although it makes me question why would you name it like that if they not. But do what you do. I'm still gonna read it. I'm gonna buy it. So stay tuned. Okay, so the next book I read in December was When I Think of You by Maya Ariel. I've had this book for a few months, and honestly, I just was never in the mood to read it, so I kind of kept pushing out. But I really wanted to get to it before the end of the year because I had heard great things about it. So I took this on the cruise with me, and I just honestly it did take me a little while to get to still, even on my vacation, because I was kind of like, I had read it after I had read another book, and I was just like, dang. Like, I was just like, dang, like, I'm gonna read it, but it's gonna hit different because I just read this book that literally just altered my brain chemistry. But, so I read When I Think of You, and basically this book is about two former flames. Okay, so it's about 7 years later when they meet each other again, and they broke up. They met in college. Kalia and Danny. They met in college, and they ended up having a little fling, but they ended up breaking up. Kind of behind something serious, kind of behind some miscommunication. But they ended up splitting ways regardless, and it just did not end on the best terms. And so they haven't seen each other in 7 years until Danny walks into Kalia's job and offers her a job that'll change her life. And now she's like, like now she's frazzled as one would be because hello, what are you doing here? But y'all know I love and I live for a good second chance romance, baby. I love a good spin the block moment in these books, not in real life. Okay, in these books only. But yeah, so Kalia's working a job that she hates, and then her ex walks in, and he's having his dream job, and offers her a job to be his producer on his next movie. Hello? She's like, she's very much stuck, just like I was. Very much so stuck and just trying to figure out what should she do, if she should trust him or not. And she ends up trusting him, and it ends up being a very interesting ride. I'm gonna be honest, it kind of I kind of was trying to get into it at first. It kind of took me a minute. Not that it was bad, it just was a little slow. I was trying to get to the meat and potatoes, and once we got to the meat and potatoes, we was rocking and rolling. I did like this book. It was very well written, very well written, very well written. I'm talking fast, so I'm stumbling over my words like a toddler, baby. I'm so sorry, y'all. But it was very well written and very enjoyable. I really loved it. I think this is her debut novel. I know she has another book called like No Ordinary Love coming out this year, so I'm excited to read that. And yeah, not gonna lie, y'all, this is a very good book. Like, and I'm thinking about it some more. I really enjoyed it, and yeah, it was very refreshing to read. It wasn't too crazy. It does have deal with grief in here, so I would say be mindful of that if that's not something you want to read, because it is like a very important theme in this book. So if that's not something you really want to read about, probably not. It's not like the main point, but it's a important plot point in the book. But I really enjoyed this. I rated it. What I rate this? I think I rated it 4 stars. 3.5. So I rated 3.5 stars. So it's definitely something that I would return to. That's kind of like my gauge. If I want to return to it, it's like a 3. If I at least want to return to it, it's like a 3. But this is a 3.5. So it wasn't like all the way there for me, but it was like just enough. So yeah, and that is that on that. This is When I Think of You by Maya Ariel, and I rated it 3.5 stars. Now, let's go to the book that very much so shifted something in my brain. Miss Tia Williams, come to the floor. Baby, when I tell you a love song Ricky Rod changed something in my brain, altered my brain chemistry. Oh my gosh. I was like, okay, so if you're new here, I just started reading this year. So I really don't have a lot to base my reading experiences off of outside of the books that I read in school for fun. I didn't do a lot of reading in school. Was not that girl. Unless I just had to. But reading for fun, I was like, girl, what are you talking about? No. So the few books that I did read for quote unquote fun, that's all I had reference to, and that was like literal years ago. So I really have just started my reading journey again this year. And I really just have been kind of just figuring out what I like, finding different authors and things like that. And if you recall, I read it 7 days in June of this year. Baby, I loved that book. Loved it down. I think I rated it 5 stars. That was one of the best. That one kind of broke my brain too. Honestly, that's probably a 6-star read for me. I love that book down. And then I read this one. I read A Love Song for Ricky Wild. And just when I thought Miss Tia Williams writing couldn't get any better, she did it for me again. She did it again. Oh my gosh. So to know me is to know that I love music. Okay, I love music. And I also have kind of just started developing an obsession with like black. I'm not gonna say I just started developing, but like I've always loved like black history and black culture and just being familiar with the different movements and things like that. And so I have like a lot of, and just general American history too. But so I have like things that float in my brain every once in a while. And one of those time periods is like the Prohibition era and the Harlem Renaissance. Okay? And with me being a fashion designer, I dive deep into fashion history and just different eras, and I just pull a lot of different moments to get inspired by throughout history. And the Harlem Renaissance is something that I had pulled and like looked into and had got inspired by for a collection of mine. And so it's always just been floating in the back of my head. So I kind of like, and because I love music and because of how integral and important, jazz music was, the cotton clubs, because it was Prohibition era, so everybody was like in speakeasies and things like that, and that was kind of just like doing something to my spirit. Like, it just seemed like a fun time. So, granted, time to times, but it's like, it just seemed like it was a cool time to be Black, and living those experiences and get to be in their room with like Duke Ellington and hear the scatting and hear the jazz and hear the anyways, elephant, all of that. So that moment and that time period for Tia Williams to make a book that hops back and forth between that time period and the present, y'all, I had already known it had a reference to Harlem Renaissance in it. So I was preparing myself for that. I was excited about that. That was one of the reasons why I wanted to read it. And then I started reading it. This book is literally like one of my favorite books. It's not my favorite book. It is my favorite book that I read in 2024. It broke my brain. Like, I could not get over this book. So, to actually tell y'all what the book about and stop just expressing my love and admiration for it, this book is about a woman named Ricky Wilde. So she is basically just trying to find her way, and she's trying to figure out, she's in this family who has like this big legacy in this industry that she really just doesn't want to be a part of. And so she separates herself and she goes out her own and try to fight for her dream. And it takes her to Harlem because she's coming from Atlanta, and she takes herself to Harlem, and she kind of gets in this mix of a time capsule battle between the past and the present. And it's just a really amazing story, and like, it just makes me so intrigued and curious. I guess two different words, two different meanings. It makes me so intrigued and curious to want to be in somebody's brain for them to think about this. Like, I really want to see what the inside of Tia Williams's brain looks like, because to put together a book like this, oh my gosh, like, I just cannot think about it enough. And I had heard about this book pretty much throughout the whole year, bits and pieces of it, because I know everybody loves Ezra. And I was like, okay, I want to see what Ezra's talking about. Ezra? Ezra kind of scared me a little bit, but I said, okay, like, I had to understand the story. Once I understood that story, I'm sorry if I'm doing a horrible job at explaining this book, but as you can see, if my basically lack of ability to really express my gratitude by being at a loss for words, by trying to talk about this book, oh my gosh, I don't even know if that made sense. But the lack of ability I have at trying to express my gratitude is what I was trying to say. Because I'm just so overwhelmingly, I read this in the summer, y'all. It's still sitting on my spirit. I want to reread it again for the first time. And I love when a book makes me feel like that, because I was just glued to this book. Okay, I'm on a beach, y'all, on vacation, glued to this book. I'm just like, reading it, and I was like, oh my God. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, what's going on? And I highly recommend this book. If you want to read a book that will change your life, I definitely recommend reading A Love Song for Ricky Wow. This is the best book I have read since I started reading again. Really ever, to be honest with you, really ever. So far, I can say this is the best book I've ever read. Period. Like, I love this book. The bar has been set, and it's high. Okay, it is Tia Williams' A Love Song for Ricky Wow high. That's how much I love this book. It's 6 stars to me. Baby, it broke the scale. But yeah, so that is that. I should have saved it for last, because honestly, the way I hyped that book up, you probably don't want to hear the rest. But just in case you do, we're gonna move on. So yeah, after I read that book, I read and Return Home from Vacation. I read The Good Ones Are Taken. Like I said, because I was on such a high from reading this, A Little Song for Ricky Wow, it was very much so like, well, I ain't nothing for to compare to that right now. I don't feel like I got nothing that's gonna compare. But I said, let me see. So I read The Good Ones Are Taken. I'm gonna be honest, y'all. It wasn't a bad book. I did read this. I did enjoy it. This book is about a woman named Maggie, and she's trying to find her Prince Charming. Okay, she's like in her 30s, and she's like, where's my man at? Like, where's my man? She's going on these dates. She's not having a good time. And her friends are getting married. Her best friends are getting married. Both of her best friends are getting married. And she is the maid of honor. And they like, you got to have a date to our wedding. So you need to do something, find you a man. So she starts dating, and her 2 female best friends, mind you, because her male best friend is like, becomes her wingman, kind of, sort of. But like, it's a little murky. The jury is still out, okay? And so Maggie is dating, she's going on these dates and whatnot, and she's like, weeding through them, and we all. Weeding through him, she finds this guy, she starts dating him, and it's kind of going cool. She's trying to figure him out. She was on these apps, but then she meets this guy at the gym, and it starts to progress. And you're like, okay, good, it's going good. And then the best friend is like, he started being weird. We all know what that means. We all know what that means. And so Maggie's in denial. Everybody is like, yeah, he likes you. And it just goes on from there. I'm going to be honest. Maggie was getting on my nerves. Maggie was getting on my nerves. She was whining a little bit too much for me. And I was just like, girl, get it together. Like, it is not that deep. Get it together. And the way they talk to each other as friends kind of threw me a little bit. Because I'm just like, questionable. But hey, Maggie overall was whining too much. She was getting on my nerves. But I was just like, okay, girl, you can be in denial. I don't know how you that in denial about what's going on here. But I read this book. I think I rated it 2 stars. I rated it 3. I rated 3 stars. But I really need to knock that rating down. I ain't gonna hold you. Because I was just like, I don't want to read this again. It was cool. The ending was cute. But read it again, I'm okay. So maybe a 2.5. I'll say 2.5. Yeah, because I don't have to read this again. But yeah, so The Good Ones Are Taken by Taj McCoy. And I went in because people was like, it's good. No. But that's just my opinion. The last book I read in December was The 7-Year Slip. This been on my shelf for a while. And I was like, let me finally read it. Backing up, Tia Wood, A Love Song for Ricky Wow has a little bit of magical realism in it. Because of time travel and this and that, whatever. It has a little bit of magical realism in it. And also, this book does too. So, I was introduced to what magical realism was this year when I read the four. What book is that? In 5 years. I read that, and it was also some magical realism. I didn't know what it was at first, but I read the 7 Year Slip, knowing it was magical realism in it, and everybody was like, "This is a good book. I love this book. This is the best book they read that year." I said, "Oh, okay. Let me see what it's talking about." I had been putting it off because I'm just like, "Am I in the mood for this? Do I want to read this? Maybe, maybe not." But I had one final push. One of my book friends was like, "Yeah, girl, it's a good book. Read it. You should read it. It's a good book. It's one of the best books I read all year." I said, "Okay." Mind you, I was still on the high. I had already figured out what my best book of the year was going to be. So I said, I don't know if it's going to be better, but we're going to see. Let's see if it lives up to the hype. It was a good book. I really enjoyed this book. It just wasn't my top book of the year, but I rated this 4 stars, I believe. Yeah, I rated this 4 stars. So it's about this woman named Clementine, and she and her aunt are like really close, right? But her aunt passes away and leaves her apartment. Her aunt's apartment is magical, and so she doesn't really believe that it's magical, but she knows her aunt told her it was magical. So her aunt leaves her apartment, and she moves into her aunt's apartment. She's still grieving, and she's still trying to figure it out. And one day she comes back home to the apartment, and she falls asleep, wakes up to somebody in the apartment. She's like, "Oh, I'm dreaming. Maybe it's my aunt. Like, I'm dreaming it's my aunt. It sounds real familiar-ish." Somebody taps on her shoulder. It's a man. She's freaked out. Rightfully so. And then she realizes she's 7 years in the past. And now she's like, what's going on? And so was I, reading it, trying to figure out what was going on halfway through the book. If you go back to, what was it, my first reading recap, when I was telling y'all about In 5 Years by Rebecca Searles, and I was reading it and I was like, what was going on? What was going on? What was going on? Deja vu. Because I said, huh? What is going on? What is going on? What is going on? I saw it through. I'm glad I did. But honestly, baby, magical realism is a world I ain't really know existed. I'm still trying to wrap my head around it. And suddenly, I'm engulfed. Because it took me about 35-40% in to get hooked. And I was hooked. I was on for the ride. I was buckled up, locked in, baby, because I said, oh, once it really locked in, I said, oh, we finna be on the ride for real. Because In 5 Years was kind of different. Because In 5 Years was basically a glimpse of the future. This took her to the past. The 7 Year Slip took her to the past, and it kept bouncing her between the present and the past. Kind of like A Love Song for Ricky Wild, but like differently in a kind of way, because in A Love Song for Ricky Wild, it didn't bounce Ricky back and forth to the past. It wasn't really bouncing back and forth to the past. It kind of just told the story of how the past is meeting the future. This one does the same thing. Now that I think about it, it kind of does the same thing, except while the past is meeting the future, she's bouncing back and forth between the future and the past. Very crazy. Very much of a what is going on kind of moment. It took me on a wild ride mentally. But I was locked in. I promise I really enjoyed this book. It kind of just alters her life to the point where she's now questioning, because her aunt said it meets you when you're at a crossroads. Like, you only experience the magic of the apartment when you're at a crossroads. And she's at a crossroads, but she doesn't know it. And so she's like trying to figure out what's going on, and her life is shifting as she's going through this time, because this whole time period takes place over like a month and a half of the summer. So yeah, it's a very interesting, excuse me, it's a very interesting read, but I overall really did enjoy it, and I would recommend it. It was just, it takes a minute to get adjusted to what is going on in the book, but once you put two and two together and that four, it start equaling four, yeah, you on for a ride. And it's a very cool book. I definitely would read another book by this author. I know she has another book out called A Novel Story or something like that, I believe. It's on my list, it's on my radar. So best believe I will be looking into it. Actually posting, you did your thing. And yeah, you kinda got me, girl. So we're gonna see what the next book got coming for us. But I really enjoyed this. It was a very, I'm not gonna say unexpected because I had high expectations, but I kind of kept going back to this one too because I was just like, whoa, very much so, whoa, and like shook, but in a good way, in the best of ways. But enough of me rambling and yapping. I done talked y'all ear off. I'm so sorry. I hope y'all ate good and had some good snacks, got good drinking in. I hope I did my job entertaining you. But these are all the books I read in the month of November and December. Total of 8 books. So yeah, I hope y'all enjoyed it. I hope y'all got some good book recs. If you do, let me know if you've read any of these. If you have a recommendation for me based off these books, let me know in the comments because I'm so excited to get to reading. In 2025, I have set my goal. Make sure you follow me on my Bookstagram at Alicia's Library. I'm gonna pop it on the screen so you can see it. But that is where I do my little recaps of books and also kind of talk about, very much bookish things. I'm trying to post a little bit more on there. I've been doing pretty much a good job of it, mostly posting like when I'm reading. So you'll get my like more, you will get the updates of my reviews and my thoughts about the books that I've read before these recaps come out. So you'll get them in closer to a real time versus waiting for the recap. But I always say wait for the recap and the wrap up. So yeah, but that is all. I hope y'all enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure you like it. Make sure you subscribe if you haven't, because if you watch this video, you locked in. We like this. We besties, baby. Come on in. I'll see y'all in the next video. And yeah, that is it. Bye. You know how I feel.